Support for Lab Out Loud is provided by NSTA, the National Science Teaching Association. Find out more about what NSTA has to offer at nsta.org. You're listening to Lab Out Loud, science for the classroom and beyond. And our guest today returns to the show to describe how his characters in his graphic novels and games can engage students in learning science.
The thing about games that's really fantastic is that games really reinforce knowledge. It's like doing something rote, like doing something many times like that, repetitive. It doesn't really get boring in the context of a game. It's like you're not really thinking about like, oh, like this is tedious to like put these things together. Like you're just doing it, but then it becomes sort of this like knowledge that you just pick up in this sort of like passive way, you know, like because you're just doing it so many times.
That's up next on Lab Out Loud, but first, I'm your co-host Dale Basler.
And I'm Brian Bartel.
And this past week has been nothing but a week of celebrating characters with May the 4th. For Star Wars fans, we had the last episode of Moon Knight, which is a comic book that Disney Plus, of course, turned into a series. And then we had the big kind of kickoff to the Marvel blockbuster movie season with the new Doctor Strange movie. And then finally Saturday was Free Comic Book Day. So we thought this, does this match up perfectly to our guest today. Welcome back to the show, Nathan.
My name is Nathan Schreiber, and I design graphic novels and board games that teach kids chemistry and physics, and hopefully a lot more if I keep making them.
Oh, wonderful.
So new listeners might not know, but you've been on the show before. So tell us the graphic novels and the board games real quick, names and what they are.
Yeah, so the big thing that I make is this game called Valence. All right, it's a pretty simple card game that, you know, using very, very basic math and colors, teaches pretty advanced chemistry, you know, like compound formation, basics of chemical reactions, and it does it with these like fun science ninja characters that represent the different elements in the periodic table. Super fun game, like you can get a game in like 10 or 15 minutes. A lot of science teachers use it as like a station activity or just something to do like after class. I'm working on a series of graphic novels right now that are attached to that game. So what they do is they kind of fill in some of the gaps that are, you know, makes it look a little bit more like if you play the game and you read, it's a trilogy. It's a series of 3 graphic novels, the Valence chemistry trilogy, and that should fill in the gaps. It should be a pretty comprehensive chemistry education at like a high school level, I'd say. And I also have another graphic novel that teaches simple machines called Big Trouble with Simple Machines. It has the same characters. Like the thing that's kind of unique about these graphic novels, like there's a lot of science graphic novels out there, but the story in my books is a little bit more fleshed out. A lot of times you read like a science comic and, you know, it doesn't really have like memorable characters or like, you know, it doesn't have like the arc of a typical like narrative. You know, it's like showing facts, which is great. And I love a lot of those science comics. I know like First Second publishes a lot of these, but these are like characters that grow, that learn about science. They even represent different aspects of science. And you're following these characters as they evolve and grow. And, you know, there's like action and, you know, comedy and light romance and all the things that we like in stories that also teach these pretty, you know, substantial scientific concepts.
So I guess I'm not real familiar with the others out there. I don't want to talk about your competitors, but what are some other graphic novels in science that we might want to look at?
There's a publisher called First Second. I think they're a division of Macmillan, and they make these comics they're just called science comics. And I would say they're great. They're great. They look great. I know some of the artists that are on them. They're very biology heavy. Like I would say like. And very
don't make it sound like it's like a bad thing there, Nathan. I was like,
no. Look, okay, I do have a little bit of a bias. I don't want to burn anybody with my hot takes, but it's like sometimes okay, you know what? Here we go. I got a hot take. Like I'm ready to embrace the controversy. I have a bit of a beef with what I call shark science. Okay, like sharks are cool. Okay, I like sharks. Do we need like
a whole
50 graphic novels about sharks? Like, I think that's debatable. I think like the value of teaching the science of sharks is like, it's like to me. Okay, so this is like my approach to science is like I take science that I think is like pretty challenging to learn, like forming compounds, chemical reactions. Like that is not stuff that people go like, oh, wow, compound formation. Like, wow, I want to learn more about that. What I do is I sort of take that type of knowledge and I dress it in a story that is really, really compelling, where there's like, a thrilling story. Like I said, there's adventure, there's humor, there's romance, there's a lot of drama, almost like a spy novel kind of feel to it.
Sure.
And then there's like another way you can go. It's like, let's take the most, enticing aspects of science, like sharks. They're monsters. What do they do? What's the science of sharks? And so that's like a path that I kind of steer away from. Like,
are you suggesting that the Discovery Channel should have like Compound Formation Week instead of Shark Week?
Yes, exactly. They should do it, and I should be
or Hermit Crab Week or something.
Bonding Week. Absolutely. Wait, that could be a different channel.
Yeah, I just think that I don't know. I just feel like there's like enough stuff about sharks. That's just like kind of how I feel. Like I said, it's kind of a hot take. Probably like a shark scientist listening here with like a bone to pick with me. You can find me. I'll be happy to debate this out with you. But it's just like I just feel like there's a lot of material about animals in particular, which I like.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
like zoology. I think it's very interesting stuff. I just want to teach kids different stuff. I want to teach kids some of the nitty gritty stuff, and some of the stuff that like I think is like I think it's kind of easy to write a graphic novel about sharks because they're monsters and it's awesome to watch them swim. So I think they get kind of overrepresented in a lot of this educational material. So
Yeah.
I want to make stuff that I think is like really fundamental and really important and that doesn't really get as much of a spotlight. Like there is, like you said, there isn't like chemical compound week. Like that isn't a thing. So I'm trying to make it a thing.
Do you see yourself as a graphic artist or graphic novelist who makes games or games over graphic novels? Is there a hierarchy, or do you love all your children? Is there one you prefer over the other, or one leads to the other?
Probably the smart thing for me to say is be like, oh, well, like I am, it's like it's 2022 and I can be anything I want or whatever.
Sure.
I think like in my soul, I'm a cartoonist. Like I'm somebody who sort of thinks in terms of words and pictures. I actually kind of think that's how everybody thinks. In terms of just how we we think in terms of like words, we think in terms of ideas, and there's imagery associated with that. So I am like a real comics person. Games are something that I find really like it's almost like a hobby, and in some ways I think I kind of have an advantage making these games because like I don't want to say I'm dispassionate about it. Like I love playing games, but I don't quite have the same like I don't have the same passion for games, and in some ways that makes me a little bit better at being sort of ruthless in terms of figuring out how to make something that really works. Like I don't get too attached to like my game mechanisms or something like that, because I'm a part of a lot of these like board game communities, and like I meet a lot of people that are like, oh, I really want this game to have this mechanism in it. I really want it to be set in I don't know, medieval Europe or Midgard or something like that. And all of those things are just like so much less important to me than like I have a concept, I want to teach it. What are the best ways to let people do that? And how can I dress it up to make it more interesting? Like I don't know. I guess it's just like I approach it a lot more analytically than sometimes I approach my comics, which like I said, I'm a little bit more invested in, and I'm hoping that like a reader can like feel that. They can feel the kind of attachment that I have to my characters and get swept up in the drama of the story the way I do too.
Are all your comics science based? Or do you have any?
They are now. It didn't used to be that way. Like, okay. I did a graphic novel that helped explain. Remember Obamacare?
Yes, I remember you telling us about this. That's right.
Exactly. So I did an Obamacare graphic novel with actually Jonathan Gruber. He was a healthcare economist who actually helped Mitt Romney and the Massachusetts legislator write the original bill that Obamacare was based on. So that's definitely like a comic that explains things. But I did a comic. It was, an Eisner-nominated comic a while ago called Power Out. It was just about a boy that, got lost in the woods during a power out. I've done some other work for Retrofit that's like science fiction type stuff. Like I like doing that type of stuff too. But I don't know. It's just like I sort of had like an epiphany like 10 years ago where I was just like, oh, like, I'm an engineer. I also make comics. I really like, these kind of like, Naruto kind of manga storylines. I was like, I can probably put this together in something that's really, really fun. And it's probably not something that somebody else can do, just given my sort of unique skill set.
Sure.
So that's what I'm sort of dedicated to doing now. Like I've got, I'm working on the third science interest graphic novel right now. There'll be a fourth one right after that. I mean, I have about a dozen of them planned. And I'm hoping it can teach like a whole high school science curriculum based on the NSTA standards.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on for the next 10 years at least. Like after that's over, who knows? Maybe I'll do some other comic or something like that. But like I'm 100% focused on making science comics and games right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Nathan, you have skills as a cartoonist, as a graphic novelist, a graphic designer. And those skills would easily translate into the digital world to make a digital game. That seems to be the push where everyone's going. You're doing board games. Is there a reason for that?
I mean, it's like, honestly, some of it is, there's a couple things about it. One is just my personal preference. Like it's funny. I have a computer science degree, but it's like, I don't know. I don't want to make something like that. That seems very tedious to make a game. Like that seems very tedious to make. It also seems very tedious to like market. Like that's something that just seems like I don't want to wrap my head around that. Like I don't understand it. Like when I make something physical, it's like, oh, I produce this, I ship it. Like that, that just makes sense to me. And like when I play games, like when I play board games, like I don't know, like I like playing video games. I do. But I kind of like playing video games on my own, so it might just be like a personal preference. I like a game where I can get lost in a world or whatever, something like Zelda or something like that. When I'm playing a game, I want to see the people that I'm playing with. I want to have like a bowl of snacks. Like I want it to be a tactile experience, and especially with like I think particularly with like the games that I make where there's like scientific concepts, like teachers have told me that it's very handy to just have the cards. Like sometimes it's like, okay, there's like a game Valence and you have these different element cards and you combine them to make different molecules. But teachers have told me like, oh, it's great just to have the cards so they can just, okay, this is hydrogen. Take this abstract concept, you make it physical. Like I told you before, like I'm making this circuit game right here. It's like, I guess I could make that a digital game, but do you know how like, it's like if you have like a digital game where you turn on a digital light, is that interesting? Or do you have a game where you're like physically putting in a conductor and you're flipping a switch and you see the light actually come on and like light up your faces? Like that's a much different experience. That's a very tactile experience. And I just think it's a lot more valuable.
So you let something slip about a future game you're working on right now about circuits, and you're telling us that there will be batteries and bulbs and everything in that.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I had my students years ago. They made a circuits board game.
Oh,
they tried to. I can't even remember its components or anymore like that. But we were doing series and parallel circuits, and they turned it into a game. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It's really fun because electricity is it's predictable until it isn't.
Yeah.
It's really pretty fascinating, and it's easy to make a puzzle out of a circuit game. It's tough to make a game. There's like a difference between a puzzle and a game. Like a puzzle is something where there's basically one solution to it.
Yeah.
A game can just be like a combination of like chess. Chess is a puzzle, but it's like there's I don't know. Like talk to Kasparov or whoever, but there's like so many different like permutations of how many different games you can actually play with it.
No, I guess I never thought of it that way.
Electricity scales very quickly, bigger and bigger and bigger. I think that would be the issue.
All right, so you already have a successful game out there, Valence, and you mentioned like teachers just like having the cards, and I can even imagine this, putting the cards under the document camera, having kids just physically manipulate them, almost like, manipulatives basically is what we call them in the elementary level. But have you gotten other feedback about your game or your Simple Machines novel as well? Like how have teachers used them? How have students used them?
Well, teachers like Valence. Like I said, I mentioned just having that, but there's also just the aspect of playing the game. playing the game is really great for reinforcing concepts, and teachers have told me that before. That's like it's a great station activity. If you have like different things set up in your classroom, there's like a resource that you want the students to use. Maybe you have what are those things called? It's like the different models of molecules. Maybe that's just what they're called. But there's only so many of them. So you can have some students using those. You can have other students playing Valence. And, it's competitive, so it can get kids really engaged. One of the things that I really like about the games that I make, or something that I'm really focused on, is like I make a game that is easy to pick up. So a kid that maybe isn't like super jazzed about learning chemistry, they'll be pretty excited to play this game because they can like attack their friends. They can like, their friend has like a base. Well, I can just throw acid at their base and just reduce it to like water and salt, which is worth a lot less points. So, it's like something that I think can like really draw in people that are maybe a little bit intimidated or reluctant about the chemistry. So it can be something that you can set up as a station. It can be a great like, after class activity. I think I was mentioning this to you guys, like sometimes you just like, this lesson wrapped up a lot sooner than I thought it would be, and there's still time on the clock. Like you can play Valence.
Different classes, different some classes.
Well, I'm glad you
end of the
that
day, sometimes I think they go a little faster.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's sometimes where you get towards the end of a unit, or let's say right before a break. So right before spring break, for instance, and you've kind of finished early, and then it's all right, so I got to rant a little bit here. My own children right now are watching Shrek in one of their classes, and I'm thinking, that's a stretch. That's
got a donkey.
Stretch educationally. It's got a donkey, right? No sharks though, but I'm thinking, all right, come on.
Donkeys are the sharks of land.
And Dale and I have had conversations about this before, but like before a break, sometimes we used to have half days, and I was like, all right, we are always going to do a hands-on activity before the break, because kids would come like zombie-like from one class to another because, all right, different movie, what's next, or movie or quiz. That was usually your option.
Are we going to do anything today?
What a choice.
So they would love coming into chemistry and knowing that like the day before a break was almost always in my class something hands-on. Now, it might not be like a high-stakes kind of a lab. It might be kind of like a fun little thing. But it was still like, all right, we're going to do something. We're going to keep you engaged physically instead of, and there's so many things that we could pull out and do something like that. So this would be one of them. If you're lucky enough to have a classroom set, I think this would be a perfect opportunity for that.
Yeah, it's great for it's great for that. It's great for like the thing about games that's really fantastic is that games really reinforce knowledge in like a way that is. It's like if you're a gamer, you have this encyclopedia of completely useless facts in your head. Like if you play Settlers of Catan, a brick and a wood, that makes a road. Like that's pretty useless information though in your day-to-day life. But like you're playing Valence and, you combine, like sodium, hydrogen, and oxygen. That makes a base. That makes sodium hydroxide. It's like, and that becomes second nature when you play the game multiple times. Like, there might be a little bit of a learning curve. Like the first game you play might take like 25 minutes or something like that. But after that, the games take like 10 minutes. And then it's just like, I'm making sodium oxide, I'm making sodium hydroxide, I'm making carbon dioxide. It's like you just repeat these steps so many times, and it's like doing something rote, like doing something many times like that, repetitive. It doesn't really get boring in the context of a game. Like you're never like in Catan, you're never like, geez, another road. Like you're excited because you're building that road. You're going to get longest road, or you're going to connect your, like your settlements or whatever it is you got to do. Like it's like you're not really thinking about like, this is tedious to like put these things together. Like you're just doing it, but then it becomes sort of this like knowledge that you just sort of like, you pick up in this sort of like passive way, like because you're just doing it so many times. Something that I hope that teachers would do, particularly when these, when I get this next graphic novel out in particular, is I think this would be really good summer reading for science, because like, when you think about like summer reading, it's always like the English, it's always the literature classes that have that, but this would be like a fantastic summer reading.
Oh, yeah.
For a chemistry class, because you would come in, you would know all the fundamentals. It would be like a very fun read, obviously. This wouldn't be like something that's like, oh man, I got to read this like chemistry book. It's like, no, it's like a graphic novel with like fun characters. There's a princess, there's ninja battles. It's a good time. You're going to enjoy this.
There's no sharks.
No sharks. Not yet. I don't think there's any sharks yet.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. Valence, I have the book in front of me, and I didn't see it at first. I was happy to see that, it says Chemistry Trilogy, Book 1, so obviously you have future plans here. Tell us a little bit about it. You've got a princess, I'm kind of paging through it here, you've got a princess, and you've got your...
Okay, so it's kind of like a Hunger Games style chemistry tournament. I guess I could sell it like that.
Yeah.
So you have this sort of like kind of nefarious, mysterious organization called Science Ninjas. And they're like a combination of like CIA and NASA or something like that. And so, and these science ninjas, they're like a kind of like an archetype, like a Jedi or something. Like these science ninjas kind of run society, and they are recruiting people through this chemistry tournament. And of course, like it's an engaging story. So it's like a dangerous chemistry tournament. It's the most dangerous chemistry tournament in the world. So, they're recruiting from like a wide pool, and basically the characters are competing, and they have different sort of stages. So the first stage that the first book kind of focuses on is called the material tunnels. All right. And so, Dr. Franklin, who's like running, who's sort of running it, she says like knowing the difference of like knowing these materials, different properties could be the difference between life and death in the material tunnels. It's like very dramatic.
Right.
And, So the idea is like there's these different obstacles that all of the different contestants in this, and I really like also setting up a story. Like this is just like about narratives generally. I like setting up stories where it's like I don't like a Voldemort character. It's like, oh, there's just this like evil character and you just need to like murder him and then everybody wins. Like this is like a competition. So there are different characters and there's a lot of different, it's a very, very diverse cast. So there's different characters that all different types of readers can see themselves in some of these different characters. And so what happens is that they like encounter different obstacles in the tunnels, and they have to use their knowledge of science to overcome those obstacles. So, like it'll talk about like density, like, oh, is this material too dense, for me to smash through? Like there's a scene where there's like characters that are in a very, very dark room, but one of the main characters has sort of like these low light goggles on. She's starting to notice that like the materials feel very smooth and metallic, and maybe they're reflective, and someone sets off like a light bomb, and then it starts talking about like reflectivity as a material property. Magnetism.
You have these little like boxes in there that talk a little bit about like intensive property, absorption and reflection and viscosity. So you're peppering in that content within the context of the story.
Exactly. So like the characters are only going to advance through this sort of like labyrinth. And I'm like very big on like labyrinth. I probably played Metroid a little too much as a kid, but like these sort of like subterranean labyrinths, like that's like, I'm like, oh man, just give me an opportunity. I think it was like a combination of like playing Metroid and watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I just always felt like there was something like magic about like sort of subterranean dungeons or whatever. So the characters, I always find a way to put some sort of like dungeon in the story. Okay. And, and they got to get through this dungeon, and they can only really do it by applying their scientific knowledge, and to overcome. So the characters are actually using science to overcome their obstacles. Right. And it's not 100% as straightforward as that too, because there's like sort of a larger plot where there's this character who's kind of an outsider, and she's infiltrating the tournament to sort of spy on science ninjas and find out like what their nefarious plot is. Like all of the sort of heavy main characters, they all sort of have like a different kind of like agenda going into this tournament. And you don't know, there's a lot of intrigue. Like you don't really know exactly what each character is after, so right. That's another thing that's going to make it like more compelling to like keep reading, trying to figure out exactly what's going on with these characters, how they're related, how they're connected to the tournament and science ninjas.
Oh, wow. So then I noticed, of course, you're like a good science writer. You were using the metric system.
Absolutely.
And you relocated to Canada now. but
Oh,
you're,
yeah, that's right.
U.S.
Yep.
born and bred, and I guess I don't know if you're born there, but you were recently in the U.S.
No.
Now you're going to
I am an
Canada.
American boy, absolutely.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about that experience now. Like, you're actually, instead of writing about the metric system, you're living the metric system.
No, I'm living the metric system, and you know what? I have the metric system. I'm actually like like that I kind of have like a little bit of a better grip on. It's the Celsius that I find like really tricky. It's just like it's just like it's like, okay, I know 30 degrees is like hot. I know 0 degrees is cold. It's when it's like
The jumps
I'm
are so
like
big.
7 or like 14 degrees. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. So I just have to like stand outside an awful lot. It's nice here in Canada. Like, my wife is Canadian, so she just kind of, like she got a job teaching chemical engineering at Western University. And I guess I should shout out my wife because she proofreads all my books, make sure that I'm not saying anything, make sure everything is like 100% legit in terms of like, especially when I get into like things that I'm like, oh, is this exactly how I should describe this? Like she knows what she's talking about to understate it dramatically.
Good.
Yeah, she's got a job here as a professor, and I came along for the ride.
Well, fantastic. And okay, so you are in Canada now, but you are coming back to the U.S. for the NSTA conference in Chicago in the summer, right?
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Definitely, I'll be. If you're going to NSTA Chicago, please come find me. I'll be in booth 442. I will have my game. You can play my game. You can play Valence. You can play Valence Plus, which is like a little bit more a deluxe version of Valence with a few more elements, a lot more molecules. You can check out the graphic novels. I'm going to be offering some pretty serious like classroom discounts. Like something that I'm like realizing is like I should just try to get as many games in the classrooms as possible. Like I think I was like, here's the problem. It's like everything I do is like I also have to like run this business and I just like make graphic novels and games and stuff. I actually have to like sell this stuff and I'm terrible at it. And I was like realizing like, oh, I should just like I should offer a steeper discount to teachers to just like get these games into the classrooms, and then more people will see it. Probably the kids will be like, hey, Mom, I played this cool game, and like maybe you should get this. It seems like a really good marketing idea. So I'm thinking like, oh, okay. So at the conference, I will be offering like steep discounts to people that want to get like a classroom set, get like a bunch of games, and you can play this cool new circuit game that I'm making. And test it out. Maybe give me some feedback.
Ooh, so you're going to have it
you're
there.
Gonna have the prototype there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have the prototype there. And that's also a good opportunity too, to just like tell me like, oh, you know what I really want, some different materials that help teach. Like I love hearing that stuff from teachers. Like if there is stuff that's like, oh man, there's this really like abstract, difficult concept that I have a hard time teaching. Could you make a comic or a game about this? Like particularly if it's like part of the NSTA framework or something like that, like tell me all about it. I want to know. I want to turn it into a comic. I want to make it something that your students can learn with.
Where do you get all the, like if you're going to make your games, you have game pieces and things like that, and then with the circuit one, how do you get all that stuff?
Oh man, this is like
that sounds like a whole
you got
interesting
a game guy?
world.
You got a game piece?
No,
guy?
I do not have a game guy. I am the game guy. I mean, it's like oh man, I know this is
So you design all the parts and everything?
The problems with an audio recording, I would show you my board. It's like I took oh man, this thing is just such a Frankenstein piece. It actually looks pretty cool as it is, but like I took so the game board is a breadboard. Do you guys know what a breadboard is or familiar with how it works?
Like a breadboard for circuits, like the little pins and
exactly.
Yes. Okay.
It's that, but like much bigger. So it operates in the same framework. So what I had to do is I had to take all of these actual physical breadboards, made out of silicon, and I had to like saw them into I don't know, something like 115 pieces. I had to glue them on back of cardboard. I had to buy the absolute smallest ferrules. Do you guys know what a ferrule is? Like this is where I'm really getting it. Like I'm like a pretty hardcore tinkerer right here. Like it's just like I am like learning a whole lot about this stuff too. Like I've been kind of like a low key tinkerer, and I'm like now I have like one of those little things that flips over my glasses and stuff. Like crimpers, I have like everything. I look like an absolute mad scientist like most of the day now. So it's really, really fun stuff. But yeah, it's just like I'm making my own materials. The tricky part about this game, so like with Valence, it's just like, that's a card game. I can just call up like any printer really and just be like, hey, can you make this card game? Either they can or they can't, but it's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like rocket science to produce a bunch of cards.
But it wasn't just cards though. Didn't you have, there's pieces though, aren't there?
No, not in Valence.
Not in Valence?
There's like a board for Valence Plus, but like no, it's just cards.
Okay.
I think you're thinking of his competitor with Ion.
Yeah.
Ion.
Okay.
Oh, you're not
won't
going to
talk
buy that
about
trash,
Ion.
are you? No,
We're not.
Like,
we don't
Genius
talk about
Games-
Ion.
Genius Games makes some pretty good
So
stuff.
now
I think
you've-
Valence is a little more fun. They make some really good games though. I think Cytosis is a really good game. Have you guys played that?
No, I
I
haven't
think I
seen
might have
that one.
seen it. So you've
I think we have seen that one.
This is moving up a dimension then, so not flat cards anymore.
Absolutely, No, this is like a real physical component thing. I think I'm gonna have so just in case anybody doesn't know this, I also I publish all of my stuff through Kickstarter. Like I have had Kickstarters for Valence Plus, both of the graphic novels. I'm gonna have another Kickstarter in February.
Mm-hmm.
So it's awesome when people like get on board with that in the beginning. And it also helps get it produced faster. So I'm going to have to do a Kickstarter for this thing. It's probably, like the timeline for this one, it's probably 2 years out at this point, just because it's like, as soon as I get like the game is fun, I got to like hammer everything out, but it's like the real test is going to be like, A, how do I manufacture this? And B, how do I manufacture this in a way that it's not like, it's like really easy to make a product that like, you guys aren't in Chicago, right? Okay, you guys are in Madison.
We're not far from Chicago, yeah.
North of
I was going to say that the kids in like Evanston can afford. It's pretty easy to make a product like that. Evanston is like a wealthy suburb of Chicago.
Yeah.
And it's like it's very easy to make an expensive product, but I don't want to make something expensive. I want to make something nice, but I don't want it to be inaccessible. I don't want this to be something that it's like, I want it to be something that like schools can afford. And more importantly, I want it to be something that like parents, can get for their kid. And, like anybody can access this type of game, this type of tool, to learn, because a lot of these science kits, man, like, I don't know, like that was kind of the inspiration behind making this, is that I noticed like these are really, really popular toys, these science kits, but they're not games. They're sort of tinker kits, and they're fun for a particular type of kid. But I will bet you this, like there's a lot of you out there that have kids that might have one of these one of these like sort of circuit kits or whatever. I have a feeling it's in a box in your closet somewhere.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at it. It's sitting on a shelf. The thing is with those is they're very I had those with my kids, and they're difficult to get more than just one person working with it.
Yes,
I find that they're like, not collaborative.
Exactly what I thought.
They're almost.
They're very much like something like there's a certain type of person, and I love this type of person. I am this type of person.
I was too.
Like, I'm just going to tinker with this thing for hours by myself. I'm going to put some music on. But like, especially like, kids are very social. Like this is a way to make it like a game, an actual game. Because a lot of these things too, like here we go, another hot take from Nathan. Like look out Sharks, and also look out Circuit. A lot of these things market themselves as games.
Yeah.
So it's, check out our like Circuit game, and I'm not gonna call anybody out. But it's like I'm looking for ideas. So I'm like, oh cool, it's a Circuit game, and then I buy it, and it's just a glorified puzzle. It's like, oh, we'll complete this puzzle in under 2 minutes, and that's not really a game. Like, I mean, if that's a game, then like Candyland is a masterpiece. Like that's not a game. So this is like I want to make like a real game that's just like, oh, okay, like every time you play it, it's a little bit different. There's gonna be a different strategy for each game. It's gonna be like, oh, okay, should we do a series circuit for this one, or should we just try to make it like parallel, go across that way? Like it's actually a cooperative game too, which is pretty.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fun. I played a lot of cooperative games, and it's funny because I tried to make a competitive game, but it's very difficult with a circuit because you're making something when you're building a circuit. It's like, I don't know how to. This is such an abstract thing to even convey. It's like you're building a circuit. It's like it's all connected. It's like it's hard to make a part of a circuit that's like only one player accesses, or something like that. It's like it's something that lends itself to sort of collaboration just by the nature of the physics of it. So yeah,
I can see that.
Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm getting going. I'm so excited about this game. I'm just like really.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I hope that we get a chance to get to Chicago too. And if you've ever seen Nathan at a conference, he's going to have things for you to touch. It's more of this, but in real life. To see. Yeah, and this is one of those things that, we were just back at our local conference, our state conference, and it was great to be back and kind of again see what's in the vendor's hall and touch things and just kind of get back into that kind of normal realm that way. And I can't wait to see what you've got.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you guys too, I just can't wait to like talk to all these teachers. And like I said, it's like I'm just like holed up making this stuff all day just to talk to some people. Sounds great to me.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us, Nathan, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, great. This is a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Lab Out Loud. If you'd like to learn more about some of the things discussed in this episode or previous episodes, you can find show notes at our website, laboutloud.com. If you have a guest idea or a future topic that you'd like to see on Lab Out Loud, go to our contact page and send us a message. Also, you can subscribe to Lab Out Loud on your favorite podcasting app, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to find podcasts. While you're there, leave us a review and rating. Your input helps others find our show. Thanks again for listening.